It's TK Friday, and today in the joy of editing, I'll be doing another full edit using the TK9 plugin for Photoshop. Stay tuned. Hello everyone, and welcome to the joy of editing with Dave Kelly, and welcome to TK Friday. Today I'm doing an image that was taken in Kazakhstan in Mangystau, and today's image is by Natalia Karchenko. Now, as always, you can go ahead and download this image and the PDF notes, which give you step-by-step instructions on how I do this edit. So I highly recommend that you download the image and the PDF notes and give this edit a try. It's a great way of learning the TK9 plugin for Photoshop. By the way, if you're watching this video on Friday, February 28th, 2025, this is the last day of the special launch sale pricing at the TK web store. And this launch sale is for Sean Bagshaw's latest video, Luminosity Masks Exposure Blending. It's awesome. I highly recommend it. To get the 25% savings, use my promo code DK25, and that'll get you the 25% off your entire purchase. After the sale ends, use my promo code DK15, which gets you 15% off your entire purchase at the TK web store. Also, when you use my promo code, I make a small commission, and this helps to support the joy of editing with Dave Kelly. So I thank you for using my promo code. All right, then let's go ahead and jump right in. Now, as always, I start out here in Lightroom Classic, make some basic adjustments. I want the image relatively flat going into Photoshop, where I will develop it using the TK9 plugin for Photoshop. Now, I am using a linear profile in this image to keep it flat. And again, just a few adjustments here under tone, a little bit of vibrance and saturation. And then as far as detail, I'm using no sharpening, a little bit of noise reduction. And then for lens corrections, I always check on remove chromatic aberration and enable profile corrections, and I haven't done a crop in this image, so it's ready to go into Photoshop. Now at this point, I just right click on the image, go to edit in, and click on edit in Photoshop 2025. Here we are inside of Photoshop 2025. Let's get started. The first thing I like to do when I start my edit here in Photoshop is do a balance and contrast of the foreground and sky. To save time setting this up, I will use David Tillett's balance and contrast Photoshop action, but the notes show you how to set this all up manually. I'll click on the B&C landscape action, and you'll note that I have a foreground and a sky layer, a color grading tool for both of these layers, and the masks on these layers have midtones 3 intersections, and what that is all about is it keeps me from clipping any really dark shadows or really light highlights. That's all that's there for. I'm on foreground. I'll come up to the color grading tool and click on the midtone button, and I just want to open up these midtones a little bit, and I'm going to take it up to right here, plus 16. And now I'll click on the shadow button, and I'll darken up those shadows to add some contrast, and I'll take those to right there, minus 33. Now let me shut off this layer. Here's before, and here's after, and now we'll click on the sky layer. And now I'll click on the midtone button on the color grading tool again, and this time I just want to darken up the sky a little bit, and I'll take it to right here, minus 11. I'll go ahead and shut off this layer. Here's before and here's after. And now if I click the overall before and after button on my combo or CX panel, we started here and now we're here. And this is a really good starting point because now at this point, I'll start to study out this image and see what I need to do next. Now I'm looking at this sky up here. I think it's a little bit too blue, so I just want to decrease the saturation a bit. So here's how we do it. I need to get to my multi-mask panel, so I'll click the X on the color grading tool. Nothing changes on these layers. We'll click on the My Channels button, and now we'll click on Sky, and you can see we have the sky selected. I'm just going to output that to a hue saturation adjustment layer, and then see where it says master, this is a drop down. I'm just going to click on blues, and I just want to pull back the saturation on the blues. And I'll take it back to right here, minus 56. Let me shut off this layer. Here's before, here's after. That's better. Usually at this point of the edit, I like to try some midtone contrast because it pops a little contrast in the midtones, which is really nice. And it also gives you a little pop of color. So let's do that next. Come up to the multi-mask panel and click on the curve button. That adds a curves adjustment layer, and then I'll put a black mask on here to hide anything I do by clicking this button on the combo or CX panel. And now come up to the preset for your curve and click on the drop down. Now here's the way I generally do this. I like to start out trying a strong contrast, so I'll click on strong contrast. And then we'll click this button here, and now we can edit this layer mask. Now, we have these different luminosity masks we can make to go onto this layer mask. And remember, I'm working with midtones and I have a strong contrast curve. Now, we have 3 midtones, 1, 2, and 3. They're all midtones, but this is the most subtle of the midtones, and they get stronger as we go up. So let's click midtones 1. And already, I think that's too much contrast. So what I'm going to do, I'll leave this on midtones 1, but I'll come back to the preset and click right here and change this to medium contrast. Okay, so that's midtones 1. It's a little weak. Let's try midtones 2. That's looking really good. Let's try midtones 3. That's too strong. So I'm going to go back and click on midtones 2. So now I have midtone contrast, okay? And it looks really good. Let me shut off this layer. Here's before and here's after. That's nice and I like it. I'm done with adjust layer mask, so I'll click the X. If you feel this effect is too strong, you can always come to the layer opacity and drag this back and just fine tune it, but I like it at 100%. Now, I only want to put this midtone contrast in the foreground, so I'm going to come on the combo or CX panel, click on my layer mask calculator, click sky, and click minus to subtract out the sky. Now let me shut off this layer. Here's before and here's after, and I like it. Now, after this foreground midtone contrast, I feel the midtones got a little dark, so I want to lighten them up. So here's what we do. We're going to come up to the multi-mask panel, click on the luminosity mask button. We're going to click on midtones 1, which is the subtlest of the midtones. So here's midtones 1. I'm going to output that to a curves adjustment layer by clicking this button. We're going to click on screen to change this from normal to a screen blend mode. See how the midtones got lightened? But I don't want the sky to get light. So what we'll do is click on the layer mask calculator, click sky, click minus to subtract out the sky. Now let me shut off this midtone lightening layer. Here's before and here's after. Yeah, that looks much better. And again, you can adjust this layer opacity if needed. And I think I need it. I'm going to click right here and just pull this back to like right there, 80%. Now let me go ahead and shut off this layer. Here's before and here's after. Yeah, I really like it. Now back to studying the image. I'm looking at this orangish red band in here all on these rocks and over here too. I'm going to start with this area right here. I just want to bring up the saturation a little bit. And for that, I need to make a mask. I'm going to come up to the multi-mask panel, click on this button right here for a color mask. Now we get a color picker and I'm going to choose a color in here like right here and we'll click OK. Now I really want to target those bands over there. So what I need to do is refine this. I'm going to take this bottom handle and drag it into the left to really isolate that area. See right there? Let's take it over just a little bit more, something like that. Now let me go ahead and take the brightness slider and let's lighten that up. Just somewhere right around there. Now I can refine this even more. And to do that, I'll click on this levels button and let me drag the highlight slider over to somewhere right around here. I'm going to tighten up the shadows, so I'm going to pull the shadows over just somewhere right around there. And let me adjust the midtones a little bit. Let me lighten up those midtones. Let me pull my shadows over a little bit more just to really target those areas. Let me lighten up the midtones just a little bit more. And I think right around there should do it. Now, there's a lot more here than I want. And if I click on this double arrow button on the multi-mask panel, you can see where all those red areas I want are at. Let me click this again to go back to the mask. I'm going to grab a lasso tool. You could type L, that's a shortcut for the lasso tool. And I just want to grab around these areas right in here, just like so. And we'll come down here, come up here. So I've selected that area and then click this button on the multi-mask panel to mask the mask. And you see how it just cuts that area out. Now we can adjust the feathering along the edges. Right now we're at basically no feathering, which is fine for this. I'm just going to click OK. We've created this mask targeting the color we want. We'll output it to a hue saturation adjustment layer. Click this button on the multi-mask panel, and then we'll click on the saturation slider and start to drag it to the right. See how I'm just targeting that color? And I think I'm going to take it over to right there, plus 28. And now look over here. I'm going to shut off this layer. Here's before and here's after. It just brings that saturation up a little bit. And now on this right side, I want to bring this saturation up of this color right here. Now, just like before, we'll click on the color mask button. We'll sample this color right here, and then we'll click OK. I'm going to take this brightness slider and we're going to drag it to the right, to right about here. Now I want to tighten this up. So I'm going to take this bottom handle and drag it into the left to somewhere right about there. Should be good. And now let's click on the levels button and let's take the highlight slider. We're going to drag it over to the left to somewhere right around here. Let's take the shadow slider and tighten this up to somewhere like there. Let's work in the midtones a little bit, maybe there. Let's take the highlight slider in a little bit more. And how about the shadow slider? I'll drag it a little bit more to the right, to somewhere right around there. I think that should be good. Now, I have way too much area selected, so I'm going to click on my lasso tool, or you could type your L key. And what we're going to do is just kind of draw right around this area right here, down into here, down here, and up. That's all I really want. And now we can click this button again to mask the mask, and we've got that area. We don't need to feather it, just click OK. And now we can output this to a hue saturation adjustment layer by clicking this button on the multi-mask panel. And now what I want to do is increase the saturation. So I'll take the saturation slider and we'll drag it to the right. And I'm going to try like maybe right around here. And now I think it's too light, so I'm going to darken it up a little bit. So I'm going to take the lightness slider and just drag it to the left, just to darken that up a little bit. And I think I'll stop right here at -21. Now let me shut this layer off. Here's before and here's after. Again, before and after. And I think that looks good. And now as I study this image, I'm thinking some of these shadows, like in this area right here, I'd like to give them a little more contrast. Here's how we can do it. We're going to come up to the multi-mask panel. We'll click on the brightness contrast button, but we're going to use blend diff to do this. So we're going to click on this button right here to go into edit blend diff mode. And what I want to do is target darker shadows. So we're going to click zone 2, which are darker shadows. And if you click this double arrow magenta button, you can see the areas that I'll be hitting. You see that? Isn't that cool? Click this button again. We go back to the image view. And now all I want to do here is increase the contrast. So I'm going to drag this contrast slider to the right. See how those shadows get a little bit more contrast in them? And I'm going to take it to right there, +20. Now let me shut off this layer. Here's before, here's after. Isn't that nice? A nice subtle contrast adjustment in those darker shadows. Back to studying the image. Now I'm looking at the yellow in this rocky area here. It feels a little too yellow to me. I'd like to warm it up a little bit and maybe decrease the saturation. So here's how we can do that. Now my edit blend diff panel is in the way. I'll just click the X. Nothing changes on the blend diff layer. And then we'll click on the color mask button again. And I'll sample this color like right here and click OK. And now I'm going to take this top handle and drag it into the right a little bit just to really target the tone I want. And I think maybe right about there should be good. Now let me go ahead and lighten this up. I'll take this brightness slider and drag it to the right and just really lighten that up so I can target just the yellow in the foreground. And now we need to output this mask. So I'm going to output it to a hue saturation adjustment layer. Click this button on the multi-mask panel. And I want to shift that hue a little bit warmer. So I'm going to take the hue slider and drag it to the left. And I'll take it over to right there, -10. See how that just warms it up a bit? Now I want to ease off in the saturation. So I'll take the saturation slider and drag it to the left and stop right here at -17. Now let me shut off this layer. Here's before and here's after. See, it just tones down that yellow. And I think that looks much better, at least for my eyes, but you can adjust it according to your taste. Next up, I want to pop out a little bit of detail in the foreground, and I want to use a depth map along with the detail adjustment. So here's what we do first. Let's come up to the multi-mask panel, hold down your Command or Control key, and click this target button, and that'll make a depth map for you. And what I always like to do is just click right here, save as a channel in inverse. I only need the foreground, but I'm saving them both out because you can always clean out your channels at the end by clicking on this brown trash can. It gets rid of all your alpha channels. To add detail, we're going to use a clarity action. It's a TK action. If your actions aren't open, click your TK button on either the combo or CX panel and look for clarity. Click on clarity, and then a high pass filter dialog comes up. And I just want to increase this radius to like right there, 16.2, and click OK. Now, I know you're probably thinking, Dave, that's really over the top. But remember, we saved out a depth map. Let's come and click on the Layer Mask Calculator button on the Combo or CX panel and click Subject Foreground. All right, this is your depth map. And then click this button to apply. Now watch the image when I click apply. See how that just really toned down? Because now we're getting the strongest amount of detail closer to us, and it fades off as we go back into the horizon area right here, and it's not in the sky. So let me shut off this layer. Here's before and here is after, and I hope you can see that. All right, now as I study the image, you see this area of the foreground, like right around this area. I think it's a little too light, but we could fix that really simply. All we need to do is hold down your Shift key and click on the multiply button on the Combo or CX panel, and we'll get a multiply brush. Now what you want is a nice soft edge brush, 0% hardness, 10% opacity. If you don't have 10% opacity, type your 1 key. And what we're going to do is just paint down over this area here, just to darken it like that. I may darken this area again. I've lifted my brush, and I may darken this area again. Lift it and paint it again, and just paint up into here, maybe over in here a little bit. And now let me go ahead and shut this off. Here is before and here's after. See, it just keeps your eye from going in there. And if it's too strong, you could take your opacity and, maybe pull it back a little bit if you felt you went too strong. And I may just come back just a little wee bit. Again, here's before, here is after. I like it. Next up, I want to close off the top of this image. So to do that, hold down your Shift key and click on the multiply button on the Combo or CX panel, and that gives you a multiply brush. You'll note we have a black mask hiding everything. And then click on your gradient tool. Make sure you have gradient and not classic gradient. Gradient is the live gradient. Click on this drop down. If your basics folder isn't open, click right here, open it up, and click this button right here, black to white. And then click on reverse to go white to black, and click on linear gradient. And then we're going to click right here, click and drag down to right about here. You can hold your Shift key and make sure you're going straight. That'll constrain it. So come right to about here. And that looks pretty good. And right now we see this bar right here. We can get rid of that by clicking on this icon. And now let's take the opacity the whole way off, and then just build it up slowly and stop where we think it looks good. So I'm going to start dragging this to the right and stopping right here at 30%. Now let me shut off this layer. Here's before and here's after. See how it just closes off the sky and keeps the viewer into the frame. And now let's add a vignette. If your TK actions aren't open, click your TK button on the Combo or CX panel and click Vignette. A Gaussian blur dialog comes up. Just click OK. And it defaults at 30%. I think that's a little too strong, so I'm going to click right here and drag this back to 20%. Now let me shut off the vignette. Here's before and here's after. And I think that's good. And now let's add a bit of an Orton effect to this image. I think it'll really look nice. So what we want to do is come up to the multi-mask panel. I'm going to click right here, which gives us workflow extras. And under Nick Page, Cam Raw Orton. Now here's what we can do here. Hold your Command or Control key down and click on this. This way you don't have to go into the Cam Raw filter and make any adjustments. Sometimes you do need to make an adjustment, but this is going to be good. I don't have to make an adjustment. So there's our Orton effect. Let me go ahead and shut this off. Here's before and here is after. Again, before and after. Now I don't want it in the sky. So what we can do is click on our Layer Mask Calculator. You know the drill. Click on sky. Click minus to subtract it out. And now let me shut this off. Here's before the Orton effect. Here is after. And we get a nice little subtle glow in the highlights. Now the layer opacity defaults at 20%, which I like. You can increase it or decrease it, whatever you want. But I think we're good. And now we have one more step, and all I want to do is add a little bit of a spotlight into this area just to draw our viewers' attention. And to do that, it's going to be a TK action. If your actions aren't open, again, click your TK button on the Combo or CX panel. Next, what you want to do is grab your lasso tool. And what I want to do is just kind of lasso like right around this area, right in here. On your TK actions, look for Spotlight Dimmer. Just give that a click. The Gaussian blur dialog comes up. Just click OK. And then you just see how this area lights up a little bit, drawing the viewer's attention in here. Let me shut off this layer. Here's before, here's after. I think it's a bit too strong. I'm going to take the layer opacity and drag it back to 20%. Now let me shut this off. Here's before and here's after. And that's really nice. And that is the full edit. Now let's click on the before after button on the combo or CX panel. We started out here and now we end up here. And I really enjoyed this edit, and I do hope you download the PDF notes and the image and give this one a try. Well, there it is, everyone. I hope you enjoyed TK Friday today and this full edit. If you enjoyed today's tutorial, please give it a like and share it with your friends. And if you're not yet a subscriber to my channel, please subscribe. Click that bell notification icon, click all. And then every time I upload a new tutorial, you'll get notified about it. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today in the joy of editing with Dave Kelly. I'll see you all right here next time. But until then, happy editing.